Welcome to StartHer, the podcast dedicated to sharing stories that ignite female entrepreneurs into action. I'm your host, Elizabeth Goede, and I'm here to fan the flame of your entrepreneurial spirit. Each week, we bring to you the inspiring stories of women trailblazers from around the world who have sparked change in their industries, powered their ideas into thriving businesses, and pioneered their way to success. So, whether you're an aspiring entrepreneur, a startup enthusiast, or a seasoned business leader, join us as we delve into the journeys of these incredible women whose tales will surely ignite a spark in each one of us. My guest today is a woman's advocate. With over 3 decades of experience as a global business leader and 3 successful ventures of her own, Pattie Grimm has navigated the ups and downs of corporate life and entrepreneurship. After a life-altering career crash, Pattie dedicated herself to empowering women and girls through her 3-year research study. She uncovered 5 success secrets that she now shares as a sought-after keynote speaker, author, and women's coach. As the founder of Advantage Consulting and Training, Pattie empowers mid-career women to go from burnout to breakthrough. Her story is one of resilience, determination, and the power of the entrepreneurial spirit. Pattie is a true adventurer, having traveled the world for business and lived in Singapore for 3 years. Now residing in Texas with her soulmate of 40 years and their adorable pugs, Pattie continues to be a badass glass kicker and a beacon of inspiration for women everywhere. Welcome, Pattie. We're so excited to have you here today.
Elizabeth, that's probably the best intro anybody's ever done for me. And I've done thousands of keynotes and presentations. That was absolutely awesome. If you have that written down, please send it to me because I'm going to change my media sheet in my bio because that was so amazing.
Oh my gosh, I'm so happy, Pattie. And yes, I'm happy to send it your way. But it really took your background for me to be able to write that. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
What an incredible background you have. So I would be remiss to not sort of talk about this major piece of your background of being in the tech industry and working with, big, huge corporate giants like Microsoft. So how did you tell me a little bit about how you even got into that space? Because with the duration of your career, that was not a common jumping point for women.
No. And one, I never thought I'd be in a tech company like Microsoft. Two, I never thought I'd stay there for as long as I did, right? So I actually started out to be a teacher and graduated in California with a degree to be a high school teacher. And I was happily teaching my first year. California passed a law called Proposition 13 that eliminated all taxes, laid off all teachers. So now I am just graduated from college. I've got an apartment, I've got a roommate, I've got bills I need to pay, and I need a job. So I went to my godfather, who worked he was an executive vice president for Bank of America, a huge bank, still a huge bank, obviously. And I got into banking and I actually fell in love with it. And eventually I got into the space of teaching and developing leaders and people instead of teaching children. Now I was teaching leadership and personal development, teaming skills to adults. And I fell into the space and absolutely loved it. And we went through this major, big organizational change, and they asked me to head that up. And I had no experience doing any of this kind of work, but I kind of learned along the way and became a sponge and learned everything that I could. And that's the first time I started my own company, right? Between banking and Microsoft, I had my own company doing consulting, training, change leadership, leadership development, team effectiveness for a whole bunch of different companies, even did team building on a Navy ship one time. Right. So I did all kinds of really fun things. And what I discovered about myself as both an entrepreneur and working for corporations is I love the work. I love doing the work, working with the clients, seeing somebody's light bulbs go on, or I love the word spark, see the spark go off in them and discover their own passion. So I figured I needed to find a way to do that bigger than just what I was doing at the bank. So I started my company the first time. And my company got bigger, but what I discovered is now instead of doing the work I loved, I was managing people doing the work that I loved. And I was dealing with things like payroll and bills and financing and accountants and lawyers and all this stuff. I'll use the nice word.
Yeah.
And I wasn't happy. So literally Microsoft called me one day and said, we need somebody to come in here that can change our culture from being a tech company with people that our customers described our salespeople as brains on a stick. So think about somebody super, super smart, but no emotional intelligence, no EQ, no ability to relate to people, right? They're super, super smart. We need somebody to come in and change our culture to be more customer centric, where we think about what's the customer's business problem we're trying to solve, not that we're trying to sell them the latest version of Office, Windows, SQL, whatever the product happened to be.
Right.
So I fell into that almost somewhat accidentally, but I fell into the organization and I loved it. You know, when I had my own company, I worked with clients like Mattel Toys, worked with a whole bunch of amazing organizations on helping them change their culture. But now I was going to do it internally from inside of a company. And I remember one of my favorite jobs at Microsoft is I used to be what they called a demo dolly, which they don't use that term anymore. No. But we had this thing at Microsoft that was a Microsoft Home of the Future that had everything you see in your house today, down to your remote control. I was doing demos of in 2002, 22 years ago. Everything you have in your house, talking refrigerator, all the artificial intelligence that you and I've chatted about, right? We had that in this home. And once a year, we had a take your kids to work day. And I'd have groups of 20 to 30 kids every hour coming through this Microsoft home. And I'm doing a demo and I'm showing the talking refrigerator. I'm showing something you'll laugh. We literally had a treadmill with a laptop glued to it. It was the early version of a Peloton or a bike or something. Yeah. It was a lot of it was smoke and mirrors in the early days, like the early things of Xbox. But at the end of this tour I'd sit these young kids down and say, if you get to a career in tech, you have a chance to travel the world. And I shared my story of living in Singapore for 3 years. You have a chance to make a difference. You have a chance to help a child who can't see or can't hear to be able to use technology to communicate with their family and friends. Right? You're not just, when I worked with the Barbie team, Barbie team was great, but it's a doll. Right? Yeah, she does make $2.2 billion a year for the U.S. economy, but it's a doll. So I really got into it. And then I left Microsoft in 2015 after my next sort of wake-up call and moment when I went from rock star to rock bottom.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. I mean, you have and you sort of referenced it as sort of a almost life-ending career crash. So, if you don't mind, walk us through sort of like what that pivotal moment was.
So I'd been there, but at that point I'd been there about 12 or 13 years. And I had a great career. I was a rock star. I was on the career ladder to success. I was one of 50 people that went on this executive program that only 50 people got on a year. And I was on the top of that career ladder. I was working. I was traveling the world. I was doing all this amazing stuff. And I tell the story sometimes. I say, imagine this. It's October of, say, 2013. And there's a woman on the floor in her bathroom. She's laid on the bathroom floor in a combination of tears and sweat. Beside her is her laptop and her phone, and she's simply trying to get up the energy to go to the job that she loved. Before she found herself on that floor, she'd been to doctors, nurses, nurse practitioners, healers, asking them what's wrong with him. I can't think straight. I can't make a decision. My hair was falling out. I gained 35 pounds. I couldn't even make a simple decision like how to make cookies for my family without forgetting something like the eggs. I literally had worked myself to the bone. I hadn't burned the candle at both ends. There was no candle left because I was giving and giving and giving and doing more and more and more and sacrificing my own health. Finally, one doctor had me go to this psychiatrist and she gave me some tests. And we sat there chatting for a little bit and she started to take out this pad. Now, these doctors were giving me depression medication to make me happy, anxiety medicine to calm down my anxiety because I was having anxiety attacks. I couldn't sleep, so they're giving me sleeping pills. So when she pulled out this prescription pad, I screamed through my tears, no more pills.
Yeah.
And she looked me straight in the eye and says, Pattie, this is not a prescription for pills. This is a medical release. You are not to go back to work. You are not to call work. You're to take the next 3 to 4 months off and get yourself healthy and get back to yourself, or you'll be dead in 6 months. So, of course, I cried all the way home. I get home, my husband,
I have chills from this.
my husband, my soulmate, I cried the whole way home. I'm surprised I made it across Lake Washington Bridge without crashing because I was so many tears. And I'm sobbing, that deep, deep sob. And my husband says, what's wrong? And I keep saying, I can't work, and we're going to be poor, and we're going to be homeless, and blah, blah. And he just hugs me and says, honey, we'll work it out. So because of that, I did recover. I did everything I was supposed to do. I read the amazing book by Dr. Louise Hayes, You Can Heal Your Life. And I did every single exercise, and I took care of myself, and I got back healthy again. But when I did get back up on my feet, I did go back to Microsoft for a couple of years and continued to be successful, but with a new frame of mind. And I see too many women, both women in corporation and women that own their own companies, that sacrifice everything for everybody else. So I spent those next 3 years interviewing 3,952 people on what makes successful women leaders. And I sort of found these 5 things. And that's what's in my book. And I've got a free gift for your audience, which is one of the key principles about writing a personal leadership vision to guide your career and life. So that you fill your own cup up.
Yeah.
You surround yourself. If you're running your own business, you need all the help you can get, and you need people around you who believe in you and who support you and say, you got this, girl.
You know, Pattie,
they help you get back up again.
100%. And I love the way that you've positioned this. I love the story. I don't love the story because certainly it came from a point of like the bottom of the lowest of the low.
Right.
But it's the fact that you use that like sort of adversity to actually help others, right? And turn this into something to help others. And, it's something we talk a lot about. It's become a really common theme through all these episodes that I've done is the fact that women don't feel like they have enough mentorship. So it's yes, there are leaders, and certainly if you work, in a company, you have managers and bosses and things like that help you. And then, but when you own your own business, unless you've hired somebody else to run it for you,
right?
You are the only person. Yeah, we don't do. And we don't necessarily have a good support system of mentorship. And so I love this idea of, I refer to it as mentorship. You referred to it as like having champions, people who believe in you. Can you go into that a little bit further? I know you talked about your five tips that you have learned through all of this. Can you talk a little bit about those 5?
Yeah. And what was interesting through the interviews is I was talking to men and women all around the world, people of all backgrounds, all diverse, everything you could possibly think of. And these themes started to emerge. And so I started to use good old-fashioned college index cards. And every time I heard a song like "This Girl Is on Fire" or "What Doesn't Kill Her Makes Her Stronger," I would put that on an index card and put it on my wall. I'd see a story on Oprah, because I wrote the book in 2013, 2014. No, I'm sorry, 2016, 2018. And I'd see something on Oprah, and I'd stop the TV, and I'd take a picture with my phone. I'd see something else that would come up, and then all these things became these 5 themes. And they apply to women who own their own company, and they obviously apply to women who work for companies or organizations and are trying to decide if they're going to stay, if they're going to go, or wherever they happen to be. And like when I say I help mid-career women go from burnout to breakthrough and from stagnation to success. That's part of my business model. And so what became clear with these 5 things. And the first one is, and this is so true in your own business, is be strong and play to your strengths. So if you love something and you find yourself doing that thing when nobody's watching, you find yourself gravitating to books and stories about that thing, whether it be, beauty products, or whether it be nutrition, or whether it be exercise, or whether it be what I do with my coaching and my training business, it's almost the theme of do what you love and the money will follow. So figure out what your strengths are. And you can do that in a couple of ways. You can take a free DISC survey to say, here's what your strengths are, Strength Finder. There's a whole number of things you can do. Or you could simply just take a book and a journal. And every time you find yourself doing something you love, write it down. And anytime you find something that you don't love, like whatever, for me, it's anything detail-oriented paperwork, doing the same thing over and over again would drive me insane. Right. Yeah. I'm not that detailed, structured person. I'm kind of wild and crazy. And people say my thoughts are like gumballs, like ding, bing, 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 bing. I can hold 6 conversations at once with 6 people and come back and remember what I was talking about. Right. But I can't. I have to have my husband read all my contracts. Right. So find out what your strengths are, play to those strengths, and then find people around you, mentors, coaches, champions, whatever, that have the strengths that you don't. Actually, believe it or not, the Small Business Administration has a whole bunch of mentors and coaches and people that can help you in your business. Women get less financing than men from venture capitalists. But there's a lot of amazing women venture capitalists out there. So that number one is be strong and play to your strengths. The second one is to stand up. In order to stand up, you need something to stand on. And this is my free gift to your audience. If they email you or contact you or whatever, however you want to do that, I will send them, you will send them, or I will send them a free personal leadership vision guide. Because in order to stand up, you need something to stand on, right? So I live in North Texas, and there's a lot of truly fixer-uppers out here. I mean, there are 100, 200-year-old houses that barely are standing up on 4 walls. But if your house has a good foundation, something it can stand on, it's going to, no matter how many rooms you add, how many you do, as long as you've got a strong foundation and you keep that going. But as a woman, as a business leader, as an individual contributor or manager, you need a personal vision too. You need something that is your guiding light. It's your due north. It's a personal vision is a short statement about who you are and who you want to be and what you stand for. And the personal leadership guide will walk people through how to actually do that, create that personal leadership vision. And it's pretty easy to do. You simply take up your favorite paper, your favorite journal, your favorite place, and close your eyes and imagine you're on Elizabeth's podcast, Spark Podcast, and you're being interviewed. But around you are your friends and family and coworkers and bosses and peers, church members, whatever happens to be. And Elizabeth says to the audience, or the people that are there, tell me about Pattie as a leader. What makes her great? Well, she's strong, she's passionate, she's compassionate, she makes a difference. And I want you to remember what those words are, write them down, and then create your leadership vision. Elizabeth is a strong, talented, compassionate woman leader who makes a difference in the world. And then use that vision statement to make career and life decisions. When I decided to leave Microsoft, which was the second time I started my company, is what you're going to help you fulfill that vision. Every client I work with now, because I've learned the hard way, I ask myself, do I have a chance to make a difference? And I remember years ago, I took in my consulting business, I took a job with a very large California utility company. And it was the job from hell. Because as I was talking to their executives about, okay, so you want me to come in and do these leadership workshops and train your leaders to be great leaders and do all these great team building things. What are you as an executive team going to do to create the environment when they can take what they learned and apply it? Because the system was so bad, the culture was so bad. Right. And I had a second chance at doing that with a different utility company. And when I asked the leaders that question 5 times, they couldn't answer my question. What will you do as a leadership team to create the environment for these people to use these skills? I looked at a group of 5 male, pale, stale, white men in their 50s, 60s, probably 70s. And I looked them straight in the eye and said, There are 5 or 6 other consultants outside waiting to make this pitch to you that I know would love your $250,000 piece of business. I'm not one of them. And I walked out the door because it did not fit my personal vision.
Yeah. And, I think that there's a lot of power, Pattie. I'm so glad you brought this up. There's a lot of power that comes from saying no. From really defining the walls of your box into what fits and what doesn't, right? I always talk about because we do branding, we talk a lot about your ideal customer, right? Like who is your ideal customer? And I work with a lot of women, so the shoe thing sort of works, right? And I talk about the sort of like the shiny object syndrome is sort of like your designer shoes that are on sale that don't quite fit, right? And you're like, but I want them, right? Like they look right. They're such a good value and, all these things, right? And then you wear them once or twice and they're so painful, you end up not being able to wear them anymore. And now they've hurt your feet. So now when you even try to put on the shoes that you love, that even hurts. And so I love the way that you explain it in the way of the power. I mean, how powerful, right? To turn on a huge contract with a huge utility company because you're like, this is not going to work.
This is not going to work. Yeah, it wouldn't be true to myself. I mean, the reason I wrote the book is if I help one woman avoid the kind of fall I had, or I help a dozen women or 10,000 women, that's okay. And it's funny you mentioned the red high heel. I don't know if you can see that. So I used to wear these red high heels all the time, right? Running through airports on these red high heels. That's my book. Now I wear red flats. And occasionally, if it's a really big keynote, I'll have the red heels under the podium and put them on long enough to speak, and then I take them off again, right? So think of your personal vision like your personal brand, and then use it to make career and life decisions. The other thing is women, which is the third principle, is we need to be able to stand out. We need to be more valuable. We need to be more visible. We need to be vocal. And so if you're in a company or if you own your own business, be more valuable by becoming an expert in your field. Take free classes. Take free workshops, go to a small business administration, hire a coach, a leader, or somebody. So become so valuable that you are the expert in your field. And then be more visible and vocal and be willing to say, I did this. Right? Many times somebody will say, oh, Elizabeth, that was a great job. We say one of two things. Oh, I could have done better.
Yeah.
Don't do that. Just say thank you. Gave you a gift, or you say, oh, my team and I did that. Stop that and say, my team and I did that. So you're putting yourself out there. You're taking credit for what you do. You're joining associations in your community that support your business. Everything you teach people about branding. I never do a presentation anymore that doesn't have my brand on it.
Yes,
and my name, my email, and my website. I mean, I remember a senior leader I worked for at Microsoft. I had created a bunch of slides for some presentation, and I didn't have our logo on it. And he said, do you know you're costing me money?
It's true. I talk about brand value all the time.
Yeah. And the brand, I mean, Microsoft, when I was working there in our heyday, we weren't as big as the IBMs of the world. We weren't as big as Coca-Cola. We weren't as big as all these companies. But what we had was our brand. And that brand was evaluated on the stock market more than the cost of the assets we owned.
And actually, I'm so glad that you brought that. I'm so glad that you brought that up. Yeah, embrace it. I'm so glad you brought that up. I mean, we could do an entire, 3 days, 5 days, 2 months talking about brands and brand value. But for most big companies, the biggest asset they have is their brand. It's more valuable. Coca-Cola's brand is more valuable than their secret formula. And
absolutely.
So if you do it right. So Pattie, thank you so much for bringing that up. I hope everybody's listening to that. Fantastic. Okay, so I think we've got.
I have two more quick ones. The number
we're up to 4.
The number 4 should have probably been number 1, was just put yourself on your things to do list. You cannot give away what you do not own. If you don't have your self-esteem, your self-confidence, I call it your self-worth. It's your self-confidence, your self-esteem, and the ability to look at yourself in the right light and say, I'm good at this, right? So it's
Yes.
all about putting yourself number one on your things to do list. Take time to eat, pray, love. I learned because I was literally working, literally when I crashed and burned, I was working 78 hours a week. I was traveling the world. I was giving up my family. I had no relationship. I worked every night, every weekend. Don't do that. Especially you'll find yourself when you own your own company doing things all the time. But make sure
Right.
you schedule time. Little things like Tuesday, Thursdays, and Saturdays, I do a free aerobic underwater bar workout class in my community for my little community. Do things that make you happy and bring you joy, reading, doing things that you love, and accept those things and put them on your calendar. Don't let anybody take that time away from you, because you can't pour from an empty teacup.
It's true.
If you have no gas in your tank, you can't help your family, your children, any of those kinds of things. Right.
It's
And,
true.
and the last one is that I'll go over is pay it forward. Pay it forward and build the next generation of women leaders. Pay it
Mhm.
forward. I volunteer a lot at Girl Scouts, at University of Texas Women's University. I do workshops every
Yeah.
year for the graduate students. Reach out and help lift other women up. There's so much we can do to support each other, not sabotage, and collaborate and not compete. And probably Madeline Albright, who was the former Secretary of State, said it best. There should be a special place in hell for women who don't help other women succeed. And so look at those people in your community that do different work or similar work. So one of my kids has decided to open these coffee trucks here in North Texas. And she started with a little coffee truck in the community across the street, and now they've moved a little farther out. She just opened her second coffee shop, this little coffee drive up. It literally is one of those industrial trailers you see on the ships. They converted it into a coffee drive-through. But what she does is she's reached out to the community. She offers the most amazing coffee drinks that you will die for, much better than Starbucks, by the way. And I lived in Seattle for 20 plus years and hate Starbucks. The coffee's too bitter, but she makes great coffee. But what she does is she goes to the local bakery, and they bring baked goods for the morning for people to buy the bakery goods. She might take 25 cents, if even that. She works with the local taco shop to bring over burritos for lunch. She works at Mother's Day, she partnered with a florist and had a deal with the florist with some cookies and a thing of coffee. So she's supporting all these other businesses. She was just highlighted in the Decatur, Texas Chamber of Commerce, which is this little bitty funky town, because she's helping other people in the community. She's supporting those other businesses, and a lot of them are run by women. So lift people up.
Pattie, you're so right. We've got to support. I think when you and I came up through the business, I think it was so hard to get ahead as a woman. I think that it was like an unconscious bias that we had towards other women sometimes, because of the fact that it was so hard for us, right? I think we took for granted that we could be helpful to others by giving the hand versus pushing them down, right? So I love I love what your daughter's doing. We're going to have her onto the podcast to talk about that. In supporting others. I mean, what an incredible what an incredible growth strategy, right? And actually helping others.
And it's funny because in my industry, right, there are thousands and thousands and thousands of executive coaches out there and workshop leaders and keynote speakers. And I still partner with other people all the time saying, hey, your expertise is X and mine is Y. How about we collaborate together so that we can support and lift everybody up and help everybody be stronger. It's just, I remember interviewing a woman for a show I was doing when I had my radio show called Women Kicking Glass. And she was actually a fairly high up in the state government. And when I asked her, what is she doing to help other women, support other women? She said, keeping them down. I worked too hard to get to where I am. I almost like literally shut the radio show off, right? She said, I worked too hard to get to where I am to help other women. And I was thinking, okay, well, I think we just sort of ended this. But, it's how do you, as you rise up, how do you look left and right? How do you look at those young girls? Because it literally It's going to take another 131 years for women to achieve pay equity till the year 2155 for women to get pay parity if we don't help lift each other out. And my passion and vision, as we've talked about, is to empower women and girls to be the best they can be, but to create a better place for women today, tomorrow, and forever. It breaks my heart to see young girls, like when I'm at Texas Women's University, that are struggling with the same issues we did, and sometimes even worse. The harassment is worse. We went from the good old boy culture to the bro culture, which is almost worse than the good old boy culture. You and I could deal with that. We would joke about it or make some smart, ask comment. But when I see some of these young people, what they're going through, we have to help each other.
No, and it's an interesting thing, right? Because when you aren't getting support from other women, and there are still some, I think, archaic, standpoints where women aren't supporting women. What's happening too is like how much that actually impacts her future. So when she needs the support, right? She's not necessarily looking for you to give her something more than you would give someone else, but to at least just give her what you would give to her male counterpart. But the other thing is that you're also training her to behave that same way.
Yeah.
Because leaders learn from leaders, or I shouldn't say leaders at that point, I would say managers, but you learn from whoever was that person in your life that was above you. And so if anyone takes anything away from this show, I would say is the opportunity to lead by example and to help bring us all up. I mean, I don't want to think that we have to wait that far into the future, Pattie. I mean, those numbers are I'm sad to hear those numbers. I feel like we've come a long way from when I started. I started in the agency side of the business where people are still drinking at lunch.
Oh yeah,
and we've come a long way since that time. So as when I look at so you started your company the second time after you left Microsoft. Yep. And I know you're on your third time now. So what happened in between Microsoft and now?
I took a couple of corporate jobs. I went to work for Johnson & Johnson Medical Services Division to help with a culture change for them. I took a job with another big tech company to help them with their culture change. And then I got to that point again where I'm sitting there realizing I have a team of 50 people at this big tech company. They're all over the globe. And I'm leading people doing the work that I love, not doing the work that I love. So I actually when the company got bought by another big tech company, we were told to lay off 50% of my staff. I laid myself off as one of the people and kept 2 people's jobs. And so I went back to my consulting, training, leadership business that I do. And so I do a variety of things. I obviously do keynotes and presentations, workshops, webinars, those kind of things. But I have 2 programs for women, and I have programs for general leadership development, creating what I call talent optimization. So helping companies optimize their talents, connecting the dot between business results, strategy, and people. For my women's business, I have 2 programs I offer. One is called StartHer, which is a series of empowerment workshops that I do within a company to train a whole group of women how to be strong, confident, empowered women leaders, and how to be bold, not bossy, and confident, not cocky. So I do a whole leadership series for them. And then I have a Empower Her or Inspire Her, which is a one-on-one or small group coaching business where I help women go through a series of things to help them go from burnout to breakthrough and stagnation to success. Like one of my big success stories was about a year ago. I took a woman who had been in the same company for 25 years as top sales rep, and they wouldn't promote her. She went and got her MBA. She had everything to be promoted to be a sales manager. They wouldn't promote her. So I helped her through my coaching develop her vision. Eventually, she ended up leaving that company, going to work for another company, getting a sales manager role. And now she's vice president of a big company in her industry because of sort of getting her out of that stagnation into success and having her personal vision and making a plan and helping her lift up her spirits and things. So those are kind of the things that I do.
Yeah, I love that. So Pattie, when you think about, especially because you've done so much of your career really had been based in sort of the corporate side of things. What do you feel like has been the hardest part about, sort of having your own business versus being part of a larger organization?
This is going to sound like a funny answer, to be honest. Sometimes putting aside, and as I talked about taking care of yourself and put yourself number one of the things to do list, I get obsessed where I can't stop doing the research, right? I'll read 20, 30 articles and I'll write LinkedIn posts and I'll do all these kind of things. And my brain is always circulating and, well, what else could I be doing? Who else could I help? So being able to shut off sometimes and truly relax. We took a trip a year ago to Belize, right? We took and I told my husband I want an all-inclusive. I want to go to Belize. And he ended up finding this place on this little teeny island called St. George Key. What he didn't tell me until we were on the plane is this is on an island where this is the only resort. There are no roads. There is no Wi-Fi except in the bar and the hotel restaurant. There are no TVs except a really bad TV in the hotel restaurant. There's no technology. There's no phone. They had a payphone on the island and they had a few houses, right? I'm probably close to hyperventilating on the plane. What do you mean I can't check my email every day? But we got there. It was this little teeny resort that had 12 cabanas. Half were over the water, those cabanas you see over the water on those travel shows, and half were on the ocean. Yeah. And 12 or 15 other couples. We had the most amazing time. And I really so then I came back with this refreshed sense of create balance in your life, do what you love, but also create the balance. And it's okay sometimes to say, no, I can't take that trip. We're doing a family reunion thing in a couple of weeks in Oregon with the family. And I got pinged by a company says, well, can you come do a wheelchair team building event for us during the trip? I thought about it. And then I realized, no, you planned this family reunion, this big birthday bash for my husband and I, and the big family coming. No.
Yes.
Learn to say no, create balance, and ask for what you want. Go ask for that funding from that venture capital group and keep at it. Don't give up.
Yeah. It's interesting. I mean, venture capital, it's less than 2% of female founders are receiving VC money.
Yep.
But I would say even broader than that is there are so many other funding sources, and it doesn't include you having to self-fund. So
it doesn't include you refinancing your house, taking out a line of credit, using your credit cards.
Right. Yeah. I need to put together a group of people who really just talk about that in general, because that's it's the box I ask for every single guest that comes on the show is, how did you fund your business? And I do have some guests that are coming that did not self-fund, but I will tell you the majority of women self-fund because they just don't. We are such doers. We would not let anything hold us back. Right. We are just going to do it because we know we can do it. We've had to fight so hard to do it. So from that standpoint, it's we just don't even think about where else we can get the help. Right. And
that's why I said things like, I think that would be fabulous to do that group and do a panel or something with that group and then share that with the world because there are other things you can do. You have to, that's part of that being, stand out, being visible, valuable, and vocal, and asking for what you need, asking for the time off when you need it, asking for the funding when you need it. Even if it starts small, like I said, go into Small Business Administration, and they offer all kinds of free workshops and seminars and things and mentors and folks to help you with your business. Find there's a lot, every city, right, where I live, there's tons of them. But every city has, women's groups, women's associations, women's groups. Find the female venture capitalists.
Right. Absolutely. So, Pattie, when you think about having your business, though, and I think you've probably alluded to this already during our interview today, but what would you say is the thing you love most about having your business?
Wow. I mean, for me, it really is. I'm going to use your term, spark. It's when I saw Angela, the woman I was talking about, go from this quiet, demure afraid to ask to be a sales manager to now being a VP of a big company, right? It's seeing that spark in someone and seeing them pay it forward and seeing them spread what we're doing out to others so that we can create this better place, today, tomorrow, and forever. And that really is what keeps me going. And that's really the thing I sometimes have to remember, to just shut off. Like,
right.
You're done.
Well, when we think about those things, I mean, a lot of times we think, oh gosh, I wish I didn't have to do this, right? Like I always think about like the bookkeeping piece, right? Like the billing piece. Those are all the things that like are the thing that you don't really think about how much work that is until you get into your business. But what would you say has been something that's really surprised you? So when you think about, starting your business, any of the times that you've had it, but maybe more particular right now, what has been the thing that's really surprised you?
How much it's part of a combination of how much I love seeing other people taking what I'm doing and extending it, or helping somebody else, finding that, posting something in your local Facebook. I need somebody to do my bookkeeping. I need somebody, and finding a stay-at-home mom who loves to do, has the time between baby or somebody that's taking care of an elderly parent, finding somebody else to light up their spark and give them a way to have their own independence. I love the fact that Mary Kay, when she founded Mary Kay many years ago, she did have a personal leadership vision, and she had a vision that she create a company where women could be self-supporting themselves by running a Mary Kay business. And that there's beauty in every woman, or every person, I'll say now, because it's now everybody. There's beauty in everybody, and finding a way to help women be self-funding and support themselves. Never get in a situation where they're trapped in a marriage or trapped in a bad situation because they can't get out because of money. Right. So how do you help this? And seeing other people do that, like I said, Brianna, with all these other little companies, she's helping all these little companies in this little podunk town in North Texas.
I love that. I love that so much. Please make sure, Pattie, that you direct her over to me. So Pattie, as we get close to ending this, I can't not ask about one interesting, unique fact that you shared with me, which is the fact that you met your husband on a train?
On Amtrak.
I love this. So tell me how that works exactly. You sat next to each other. I need to know more about this story.
Okay, so we were both executives. I was a VP for the big California bank, and he was the VP of finance and CFO for the Biltmore Hotel Group. We both happened to live in Southern California, so we both happened to every day get on the train in Santa Ana, California, and take the train all the way to LA and back every day. So we were commuting back and forth for 6-9 months or something. And it started out as, well, hey, do you want to meet for lunch? Your offices are a couple blocks away. Let's meet at Elvira Street. Let's have some Mexican food and let's chat. So it started out at lunch, and then it got more friendly. And then at some point in time, we were, there used to be this thing, we called it Poets Party, right? So this is downtown Los Angeles. You take a little bus to the train station and you walk through Elvira Street. So every Friday we had Poets Party, which was, piss on everyone tomorrow, Saturday. That's what Poets stood for. So people would run through the Elvira Street. Somebody would grab food, and there was actually a bar car on Amtrak on the daily commutes, both East Coast and West Coast. So people would run through and they'd grab some beer and wine and stuff and food. And eventually it just got to a point that one night we'd got on the train. We were sitting there, having a drink or something after the train. And he goes, "Do you want to go out?" And I said, "Yeah, I've been hoping you'd ask." Well, actually, at the first time was St. Patrick's Day, which is our anniversary. Is I sat on his lap and said, "I want you."
Well, I guess, you know what? It's working, because 40 years later.
It's been 40 years.
Oh my gosh, Pattie, I love that story so much. I'm so glad I asked about that. So the last two things I want to end with is one is if people heard things that they love today, and I know that Laura actually has put a little comment in about how important it is that we support each other and empower each other. So she really resonated with that. But how would people get in touch with you? What's the best way for them to find you?
Okay, so my name is Pattie, Pattie Grimm, Grimm, like Grimm's fairy tales or the story Grimm. The Grimm TV show was on a few years ago. LinkedIn is one place. I'm really easy to find in terms of they can email me directly and it's Pattie Grimm, Pattiegrimm at live.com, or the company email is pgrimm at advantageconsultingandtraining.com. But you can find, I write lots of articles about women, about business on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook. I had a Women Kicking Glass Facebook page, but it hasn't been very active lately. But probably the best thing is LinkedIn and just email me.
Fantastic. Well, Pattie, I'm so glad that people are going to be able to find you. I think you've had a lot of really great things to say that are very inspirational today. And as my little segue into the last question today, and I ask all my guests this same question, which is, if you were to give one word or short phrase to act as inspiration for a woman to start a business or to grow her business big, great big, what would be that word or short phrase?
3 words: be bold, be brave, be brilliant.
Oh, that's great. That's wonderful. Thank you so much. Pattie, it's been such a pleasure having you today. I could talk to you for so long, and we have so much in common. And the whole premise of the Spark Starter podcast is really to shine the light on the opportunities that women have in their future. And you are certainly living that mission and helping do that out in the wild. So Pattie, thank you so much for being my guest.
Thank you.
Thank you to all of our listeners who have joined us today on the Spark Starter podcast. It's been an absolute pleasure bringing you the uniquely inspiring stories that ignite female entrepreneurs into action. I've been your host, Elizabeth Goede, and on behalf of all the awe-inspiring women entrepreneurs out there, I encourage you to not only dream big, but to ignite those dreams into action. Remember, every spark can lead to an extraordinary fire. So keep the spark alive for today, tomorrow, and the vibrant future beyond. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast to never miss a spark. Until next time, stay ignited.